Hi, Penny. You packed a lot into that video essay. Um, in fact, I had a few comments, I suppose, on format, and then we'll get into the substantive. Uh, the images were certainly interesting. They weren't particularly well integrated into the overall text. So I'd urge you to consider perhaps putting your own face on, and that is to say, if you want to promote a conversation out there about these kinds of issues. There is something to be said for the human face, with all its limitations, and of course we all feel a little odd sometimes about putting ourselves out there visually. But if you do that, it has the advantage of getting some people to respond that might not otherwise respond, and it engages the audience and so forth. So it seems to me that unless the image is serving a particular function, is being analyzed, is being juxtaposed to what's being said in some interesting, ironic way or something like that, uh, probably one should go with the face. It's something worth thinking about. In terms of the substance of what you say, it's an important and thoughtful essay. Certainly, the issue of the olive tree is fascinating. There's been so much visual politics, of course, from the standpoint of the Israelis around the nature of tree planting. The reclamation of the desert is a common trope. Um, and of course, many Palestinian supporters and activists have argued that what looks like the reclaiming of an empty land is through tree planting by Israelis is, in fact, an act of ecological imperialism that effaces previous histories of settlement, of human presence, and so forth. And that the seemingly beautiful image of planting a new tree um, while carrying the possibility of regeneration and even memorializing those that were lost in the Holocaust or redeeming the nation, does have this unfortunate political undertone of writing out other histories. So, visual counterpoints around the olive trees, which would be not so much claiming a new land, but a reclaiming of space, rerouting in and calling up those histories could be quite interesting, because it's certainly true that in the global, as it were, conversation of images, um, the images of Palestinian resistance have generally not played all that powerfully, all that effectively. Certainly in the United States, one thing in particular, the video clips immediately after uh, the attacks on the World Trade Center in 2001. There was one repeated clip that ran for a number of days showing Palestinians celebrating, at least initially, at the reports of the attacks on the Twin Towers. It would be impossible to calculate the negative damage done to U.S. support for the Palestinian cause. I think it's still essentially has, for most Americans, written the Palestinian, that moment, I mean, along with many others, but that moment particularly perhaps, has written U.S. public support for the Palestinian cause sort of out of the record. That sense of deep betrayal, I suppose. I mean, I'd love to know more about how that image was in fact captured and circulated and so forth, and other people's sense of that. But so the olive one is an interesting one. It would be fascinating to explore that, to talk with photographers, with artists, and so forth, and to see what the possibilities, the very rich symbolic, arboreal symbolism, uh, photographically might in fact accomplish. And perhaps you'd want to pursue that more. Thanks.